All right, thank you so much for joining us here on ABC 24. Are we actually on right now? Just double checking. Mic checks. All right, so thank you for joining us on ABC 24 here. I'm Ruben Diaz. We are in the process of getting ready to cover a press conference, a community gathering or a press conference by Shelby County Mayor Lee Harris. He's hosting this event today to discuss the conditions at 201 Poplar. Now, he was calling this a community update. We want to take a live look now at the
ABC 24 News starts right now with breaking news.
Ms. Betty's son died while in custody at our jail. With that, I give Miss Betty the floor, virtually speaking, to make some comments at this time. Miss Betty.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the introduction and allowing me to speak. My son Christopher was a father of 4 and the oldest sibling. He is deeply loved by his family. He had just been released from a psychiatric hospital. Memphis was supposed to be his bus transfer station, not his final destination. He was arrested for misdemeanors that did not warrant a death sentence. Christopher was found unresponsive in his cell and spent several days in the ICU. The jail never informed me he was dying. I never had the opportunity to pray for his recovery or embrace myself for the trauma that came his death. No mother should ever have to experience that. Incarceration should never, ever replace a person's humanity, and leadership should never grow so accustomed to tragedy that it no longer feels the weight of it. Christopher is one of 13 people who lost his life in the jail in their monthly death row. This is a crisis, losing over one person a month. Sheriff continues to say that a new jail is the solution, blaming it on deplorable conditions. A building doesn't monitor cells, people do. A building doesn't decide to withhold information from a grieving mother. Leadership does that. You cannot build your way out of lack of humanity. When 13 people die in 1 year, it's a failure of oversight, not a failure of infrastructure. There are still 2,000 families that are being affected that have loved ones in that jail. I fear for their lives today. I don't want any other family to endure the pain and suffering that we are enduring today. I'm asking the leaders of Tennessee to demand transparency and hold those in charge accountable before another life is lost. The people that are incarcerated at Shelby County today cannot wait for a new building. They need humanity today. Thank you, Mayor, for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Ms. Betty, for those comments. And Ms. Betty is just one of the individuals that have contacted our office in recent months, sharing their story with the folks in our office, and we share that story again today. At this time, in light of the death of her son in 201 Poplar, we'll have a moment of silence, a brief moment of silence, And I think she shared some photos, and if we can bring up the photos, we'll also watch the photos. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to invite to the podium to make some remarks Ethel Kilgore Ball. Miss Kilgore Ball has a son, and her son has reported traumatic treatment and experiences while in custody at 201 Poplar. Miss Kilgore Ball now co-chairs Micah's Transformational Justice Task Force. Miss Kilgore Ball.
Good afternoon. My name is Ethel Kilgore Ball. First of all, I am a mother, and I am Micah's Transformational Justice Co-Chair. I am here today to speak about the inhumane and unacceptable things that have happened and are still happening inside of Shelby County Jail, also known as 201 Poplar. 201 Poplar has had poor conditions for years, but the Memphis Unsafe Task Force has only made it worse with the large volume of arrests. No human being should be forced to endure any of the inhumane conditions inside the local jail. My son was incarcerated at 201 Poplar. I stand before you and speak for him as his mother. Not only do I speak for my son, but for the countless families who have reached out to me concerning the fear, the frustration, and the pain brought on by their loved ones being incarcerated in the local jail. While inside 201 Poplar, people are being forced to live in conditions that no human being should endure. For example, number one, when my son was taken in to intake, his name was spelled wrong back in 2018 and is still spelled incorrectly. Names are being spelled incorrectly and given several alias names during intake that has led to several wrong people being arrested. He went for 16 days with only one shower. No shower for days at a time continues. Then there were the lice and the roaches. The lice-infected people in cells were given the same sheets while he was there, and the lice spread from one cell, lice and roaches spread from one cell to the other. Then there was the days where he went without any recreational time. When they asked about it, the staff simply blamed the others, or they said they were short-staffed. One incident, it was August, it was nearly 100 degrees, the air conditioning went out, and the only relief that they offered inside the jail was a fan. There were several nights that I would sit and wait for him to call, and the phones are cut off at 10 o'clock. At 9:55, he would call, and I asked, why it take you so long? And he would tell me that he didn't have free access to the phones, that individuals controlled the phone. These are not minor issues. These are serious health risks. These are a violation of basic human dignity. People at 201 are still human beings. In 2025, there were 12 people that died at 201 Poplar. Many are awaiting trial. Many have families who love them. Being incarcerated does not mean being stripped of basic human rights. 201 Poplar is a pre-trial facility, so the majority of the people they have not had their day in court. As a mother, it breaks my heart to know that someone's child is being forced to live in this way. As an advocate, it angers me to know that this has been allowed to continue without accountability. A new jail is a long-term solution that is being proposed by the sheriff's office, but we need stakeholders to come together with immediate solutions. According to the recent study by the University of Memphis, Shelby County has a poverty rate 26% higher than the rest of the state and roughly 42% higher than the national average. Many Memphians are struggling to meet their basic needs. Memphis needs investment in housing, mental health, and good paying jobs because these resources keep our communities safe. Memphis needs more focus on prevention because incarceration is only a response to crime. There are a few solutions that we would like to implement. One, a plan with a timeline to address sanitation, overcrowding, and basic living conditions at the jail. Two, law enforcement comply with Tennessee's cite and release laws for misdemeanors to decrease the amount of people coming to jail. Three, more referrals to Alliance Health Services for people experiencing mental health crisis. And four, transparency and oversight so families and the public are not kept in the dark. As a task force, we hope that our leadership involved with the jail will come together to find solutions because lives are at stake. If we remain silent while people are dying, we are compliant. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kilgore-Ball. At this time, we'd like to invite to make remarks Laura Geddes, who's co-chair of the Micah Transformational Justice Task Force.
Good afternoon. My name is the Reverend Laura Geddes, and I'm clergy at Grace St. Luke's Church in Midtown. I'm also one of the co-chairs with Ethel Kilgore-Ball for the Transformational Justice part of Micah. The mission of Micah, which is Memphis Interfaith Coalition for Action and Hope, is to equip people of faith and goodwill to organize communities for systemic change through collective action. The three areas of community focus that Micah looks at and focuses on are called pillars. There is housing and livable neighborhoods, there's transit equity, and there's transformational justice. It's the transformational justice that is trying to address systemic harms in the criminal legal system by transforming conditions that allow injustice to persist. It is not a reformative approach that modifies existing structures. Transformational justice is advocating for community-led accountability and alternative responses to harm. The Grace St. Luke's Community of Faith is partnered with Micah because as Episcopalians and as Christians, it is our baptismal covenant which calls us to respect the dignity of every single human being by doing justice, by loving mercy, and walking humbly with God. We stand with all of our neighbors in collective action for systemic change. Thank you.
Okay, we want to say thank you to the mothers and also thank you to the representatives of Micah for being here, for sharing their stories today and sharing their stories repeatedly along the way, looking for someone to listen. And these stories are heartbreaking, but they are consistent. And so this is not the first set of mothers that I think elected officials in Memphis and Shelby County have heard from, but we're hoping that in 2026, this is the last set of mothers. At this time, I'd like to just make a couple of remarks about what kinds of reforms we'd like to see, and there are two. One, we'd love to see the Sheriff's Office come up with a plan for reform in 2026. There's a document that some of you have already and that we will circulate to those that don't have it, which is the current state of affairs in terms of planning from the Sheriff's Office. I view the current plan as insufficient. It doesn't talk about what the sheriff is going to do to reduce the incidence of death and serious harm that we've heard about today. The plan, you can read it for yourself, doesn't talk about very much. In fact, when I first saw the so-called plan, I was shocked and dismayed. I repeatedly emailed the sheriff and his team and said, this couldn't be. You must have a plan more serious than what's in front of me. we need a plan in 2026. We can't have another year like the last one. And secondly, we're asking all of those with responsibility, that includes yours truly and the county commission and the sheriff's team, to take seriously the effort by Erica Sugarman to form a civilian law enforcement review board. Because without civilian review, we don't have visibility into all of the issues that we hear about on a daily basis from families that are affected by what goes on in 201 Poplar. We need our civilian law enforcement review board to work and to have access and to have the ability to report as representatives of the body politic on what they see and hear in 201 Poplar. Again, Commissioner Sugarman has passed this resolution creating the Civilian Law Enforcement Review Committee, and she passed that resolution some time ago. But none of us have done enough to make sure that that committee is stood up and that it is working. Right now, she needs staff to support it, and that staff has been delayed. And so all of us need to do our part to make sure that that occurs. So those are the two calls to action for 2026, so that we don't have another year like we had in 2025 at 201 Poplar. At this time, we'll take any questions that you might have.
Hi, Mayor Harris. So I don't know if you were made aware of this, but the Sheriff's Office did send us some release earlier this afternoon, basically kind of pointing the finger at you all, and in part, it does say that there have been systemic failures in funding and oversight of the mayor's inmate medical contract and major structural repairs. What would you say to that?
Well, again, we want to see a plan from the sheriff. We all know that he has administrative responsibility for the jail, and we're just asking simply for him to put the plan to paper and put it in front of us. At the same time, we're asking him to be a willing participant with respect to standing up civilian review. With respect to, the healthcare contract, I picked the healthcare vendor that the sheriff asked me to pick.
Mayor Harris, both you and Sheriff Bonner are in the waning months of your final terms in office. Issues at the jail have been ongoing for years. It's been a very widely reported topic for at least the last 4 years of my time here. Why haven't we seen a bigger and more put together effort from your office, the sheriff's office, to come together and figure out how to fix the problems at the jail instead of letting it accumulate over the last couple of years?
I don't know where you've been, but I have been doing everything I can to try to ring the bell on the deficiencies at 201 Poplar and the operation that's associated over there. I have met time and time again with the sheriff. Like I've said before, bought him lunch and done any number of things to try to put together some ideas for reform. And in this last go around, I expressed my profound speechlessness over the absence of a plan and us turning that in to state accrediting agencies. And so I'm doing everything I can, and I'll continue to ring the bell. Obviously, we have to give voice to the constituents, and the constituents continue to call when their family members are locked up in 201 Poplar and continue to complain about the treatment that they receive. Recall that we heard the same thing. The crimes were more urgent and more serious with respect to the juvenile facility, right? The sheriff managed the youth facility. And so I did everything I could to try to create reform there. When that all failed, we volunteered to take over the juvenile facility from the sheriff's office so that we could try to quiet some of the complaints from the management of that facility. But that was even more worrisome because we had lots of gang violence among the kids, and we had kids that regularly called our office, their families, and complained about being held in solitary confinement, which is of course illegal and inhumane. And so it didn't stop. It didn't stop. And so again, all we could do was try to take over that from the sheriff, and we remain ready to do whatever it takes to remedy all that is deficient right now in the sheriff's office.
Mayor, in your view, what you've done with juvenile detention as a kind of model for what could happen in the jail, or are they too different?
I'm not sure. I don't think we have enough visibility into what's happening in the jail. And as I said, that's what the Civilian Law Enforcement Review Board would do, or the Civilian Law Enforcement Review Committee, as it's called. Clerk, it's called clerk here. Obviously, it's called clerk over there. That's what clerk would do here. It would give us eyes and ears on the ground, because none of us know what's happening. We hear stories from those that are inside, but none of us can say for sure. And so that's what civilian advisory would help us to do. And so it's hard to say exactly what the solution is, but I think trying to share some of the responsibility for management is probably not a bad idea. And like I say, so far, this is all hard work, so I'm not negating that, but so far we've seen a dramatic decrease in the number of kids in juvenile facility, partly because we return transportation and take the kids to court. And so some of the backlog we see there is probably related to that we've heard complaints from the judges. Y'all have reported on the judges that the sheriff's office won't transport the folks to their court hearings in a timely fashion. And so that leads to some of the backlog there as well. So we know that worked in the juvenile facility. We know that it's very hard work, and we know that there are possible solutions out there if we can start somewhere with a plan.
Has it been difficult, you mentioned a little bit communicating with the sheriff's office over this, but like Ms. Golden was saying, she hasn't gotten a lot of information about her son's death. Has that been the case with your office in terms of trying to get documentation or anything like that about the conditions there? Has it been difficult working with the sheriff's office to get information about what's going on there?
Well, I think we can see his style. I don't want, you can see his style on display all the time. So I think he's a sensitive individual, probably based on what you have seen. And so I think that makes things hard, because frank talk, honest talk is very hard for some sensitive individuals.
Mayor Harris, I wanted to clarify one time. You did say that the sheriff is the one who told you to pick Well Point. Is that
Yes,
what you said?
correct.
Okay, and also, if we're talking about moving forward at this point, because obviously that's what this press conference is about, and making sure people get the answers that they need. So what conversations are you about to be having with the sheriff so that these mothers are not going through this anymore?
So as I said, we're calling on the sheriff to deliver a plan, and so I will follow up directly with respect to that, deliver a plan. I've already done that the first time when I saw the plan and expressed how dumbfounded I was that this would be a plan that we'd put in front of accrediting agencies. I've already done that once, and I will follow up, but we're calling on the sheriff to develop a real plan, and we're calling on all of us, including yours truly, to do what we can to stand up clerk. So that's what we're going to do.
Can you clarify your comment about privatization you made earlier?
I said that Core Civic could probably do a better job than what's happening right now.
Do you have any specific plans for your office to support the creation of this civilian or the staffing of this civilian review board?
Absolutely.
Can you share them?
Well, right now the way it's set up is the hiring of the review board would be the province of the county commission, but we're willing to support and help the county commission. If the county commission decides that it's better for others to hire, then we'll be willing to step in as well.
What timeline would that be for something like that?
So we're going to talk to the chair and ask the chair, and that's already been done. Erica Sugarman has already contacted the chair about the missing positions that would be needed in order to stand up the committee. And we're going to continue to talk to the chair and see if that's the direction she wants to go. And if not, then we will ask her if she wants to hand that off to someone else.
Got a follow-up.
And we're gonna,
question
because we're already out of time.
Back
Yes.
in 2023, I think it was, Governor Lee signed a bill into law, and I need to go and refresh up on it, but it essentially cut the teeth down for all civilian law enforcement review boards. I mean, how do you kind of get around that, and do you think that's going to pose any issues with this board that you guys are trying to create?
Yeah, so I'm not familiar with the law specifically, but usually you can voluntarily still do the same sort of, put the same sort of structures in place. And so the same is true right now on a citywide basis with respect to how we deal with unions and our memorandums of understanding. So at the state level, the state has passed many laws to say that unions are illegal and that there is no enforceable bargaining power as between a local government and unions. But we voluntarily enter into the same, substantively the same sort of agreements with our unions as if they were enforceable under state law. And the same is true here, is that all of us, the sheriff, the county commissioner, and yours truly, could work together to have civilian oversight, and then we wouldn't have all these open questions when the families call, because we would actually have individuals with eyes and ears on what is happening at 201 Poplar. All right, we're going to go to the last comments from any of our guests. If any of our guests want to make some last comments before we wrap. So Ms. Kilgore-Ball, would you like to make any last comments before we wrap? Okay. And Ms. Betty, is she still there? Ms. Betty, would you like to say anything before we wrap? Did she say no?
No, not at this time.
Okay. And
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Laura. Anything?
No, not at this time.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, thanks very much.
All right, you've been watching that community update from Shelby County Mayor Lee Harris, as well as members of Micah, as well as they've been talking about some of the conditions at 201 Poplar. We will have a complete wrap up of this and some of the sound that you heard, some of those comments coming up at our ABC 24 News at 5 and at 6. We will see you then for those newscasts.
Continue with us and watch free now on the 24 Plus app everywhere you stream.